Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Interview with the Dracula. I'm your host, Actual Dracula, and I'm honored to have as my guest tonight an incredibly accomplished writer. He's written many comics for Marvel, DC, Dark Horse, and others. His work has been nominated for and won multiple Eisner Awards, including the Eisner Award for Best Digital Comic 3 times for his series Bandette, which won in 2013, 2016, and 2017. He also wrote the horror miniseries Colder, as well as its 2 sequels, and is currently working on another horror title with the great Andrea Muti. The somewhat puzzling yet, in my opinion, excellent Bunny Mask from Aftershock Comics. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for Mr. Paul Tobin. Welcome, Paul.
Oh, it's good to be here.
Yeah, thanks for doing this. Is really looking forward to this. I am eager to pick your brain about Bunny Mask.
Okay.
But before that, I would like to talk about some of your past work. Maybe some books that people watching aren't familiar with, but I think absolutely should be. But before that, actually, I'd kind of like to talk a bit about your origins. Were there any particular books or characters that made you want to write comics? And and how did you get your start? What was the first project that you worked on in the in comic books?
Boy, I sort of always loved comics. My grandmother was a garage sale aficionado, and her house and her outbuildings on her farm were always full of just everything she amassed at garage sales, which was a lot because she bought a lot. So there was always comics, books, things like that. So I was always reading, and then comics were my favorite because I loved the visuals of it and sort of the heroism of it, and maybe just the fun. Steve Gerber was a writer that I liked a lot, and it wasn't until like just a few years ago that I realized how influential he was on my writing. But yeah, it took me a long time to decide to actually be a writer. I didn't think it was possible because I grew up in the middle of Iowa, and didn't seem like there were a lot of. I thought you needed to be somewhere. I thought you needed to live next to a publisher, or at least within walking distance. So Iowa's not within walking distance of much but cornfields. So,
right.
But then when I went to college, it kind of changed because one of the first friends I made at college was Phil Hester. He's a comic artist, and he's still working today. And he was doing comics. He was already working in comics at that time. And I was like, well, this dude who just lives a dorm over, is doing comics, so there's no reason I can't. So Phil and I started like kind of messing around in comics together, and my first works were with Phil. He's one of my oldest friends, and definitely my oldest collaborator.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, and what was the first? So, what was your first published work with him together?
My first published work anywhere was in Dragon magazine. I was a big, and I still do love Dungeons and Dragons. And I wrote an article about magical items for jesters. And I can still remember going. This was the old days when you had to send everything by mail, and I was sending tons of things everywhere. And then I would, go to the mail and collect all my rejection notices, because you'll get a lot of rejection notices. And I was collecting them because I kind of see rejections as badges of honor, because at least you were on the playing field, at least you were trying. But yeah, I can remember going to the post office and opening up my post office box, and the letter back from Dragon magazine had a big written marker thing on the outside of the envelope that said "Submission accepted, check enclosed," and it was like, well, that looks like a good sign.
Yeah, sounds like it.
So yeah, that was my first, and then my first comic was I forget the exact name of it. It was for oh man, what was that? Shattered Earth, and it was with Phil, and it was like some mutated warriors in the future just fighting, and it was garbage, but fun garbage. I have a love of fun garbage.
Oh, as do I. Do I. Growing up reading comic books in the early 90s, there was plenty of that.
Plenty of garbage.
Plenty of fun garbage. Yeah.
I was running a comic store in the 90s in Iowa, and there was some good comics, and then there were a lot of fun garbage, and then there was a lot of garbage.
Yeah, that's true. But the Dragon magazine, that's kind of a good segue into you've written a number of books that are based on the Witcher, I guess, Witcher series of books, which then of course became a video game and TV show, right? Netflix show.
Right.
Now, had you actually like read the books before, or was this kind of like, was this something that you wanted to write specifically, or it was like kind of a thing that came up and, thought it would, sound like something fun to write?
I had played one of the video games at the time, and I had read a couple of Sapolsky's books.
Yeah.
And then Daniel Chabin, who's the editor at Dark Horse, who was the editor for The Witcher, is a friend of mine, and he said, "Do you have any interest in Witcher?" And I was like, "Yeah, I do."
Yeah.
I ended up writing those, and it was a lot of fun. I mean, it had its bad parts, like not bad parts, but like I think I was like maybe 90% of the way through the last game, the big game, the one that was a lot of fun.
Witcher 3.
Yeah.
And
at that point, we needed to start plotting some work, the third series of Witcher that I did. And in plotting it, they needed to spoil all the endings for me because we were going to interweave the endings. So I played like 90 hours of a video game, and they're like, "Let's just sit down and we'll tell you the end of everything."
Yeah. And 90 hours in a game like Witcher 3 is like literally you could accomplish nothing if you chose to do.
It was even funny because like one of the game designers, one of the guys that did the game, he because a game, a group that makes a game like that, it's like 1,000 people. So he was one of the main game makers, but he still didn't know the endings. So he got up and left. He's like, "I haven't finished yet." He just left. But yeah, there were a lot of fun things with working on Witcher. Like one of my favorite snafus ever actually happened with that because we did a big announcement for this series at San Diego in a convention in one of the halls that had like 2,000 people in the hall, and we were going to show like scenes from the game, and we lost all sound. There was just this silent game showing to 2,000 people, which sounds lame, but it ended up really cool because one of the guests on the panel was the guy who did the voice for The Witcher in the games. So he just narrated everything. It was like this really cool, like sitting next to the Witcher's voice, and he kind of looks like the Witcher too. So it was even better. So yeah, I have a lot of fond memories of working on The Witcher.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah, I'm really only familiar with the game Witcher 3, which I don't. It's been a while since I played that. I don't know how many hours I played it, but I probably uncovered 10% of the map after playing it for months. I love and hate games like that at the same time. I don't know. It's definitely one I'll have to revisit. I have not yet watched the show, but I don't know. Did you watch that? What did you think?
I enjoyed parts of it. I am like, I don't know what it is about me. Like, if I read a comic, I'm a mid-level critic. If I read a novel, I'm a super level critic. I'll toss novels. TV and film, I'm a pretty harsh critic. So if I can find a thing I don't like, but I actually liked a lot of the characters, and I thought he did a pretty good job as the Witcher. And I'm actually really intrigued to see. One thing I try to remember on especially TV shows is it can take a while to get, because of it's such an enormous plotting behemoth to make a show, it can take a while for them to get to where they want to go. Like a lot of my favorite shows, like The Wire comes to mind, is a show that I loved. But But I would never have watched that without my friend, artist Steve Lieber, who told me, go watch the Wire. You will love it. And but then he told me, you will detest the first 2 episodes. And I watched the first episode of The Wire, and I hated it. I thought it was garbage, and I would have quit right there. But Steve had told me, you will want to quit. Don't go on. And then it turned into something good. So yeah, I try to judge things by their second season to a certain degree, although that can fail too, because sometimes I can think of some shows that were good the first season and then were garbage the second.
yeah. The pacing of a show like The Wire, it's slow, but it's worth it.
Yeah, it delivers.
Now, something that I feel has, when it comes to this medium, comic books, I found the pacing of this absolutely perfect. And this is one of the works you're perhaps best known for, which is Bandette. Now, for anyone watching who hasn't read it, I highly recommend it. It's a 20 issue webcomic, which, as I said in the intro, was nominated for multiple Eisner Awards and won said award for Best Digital Comic 3 times. I mean, to have done that's an incredible achievement, and well deserved, I must say.
Thank you.
Now, this was a collaboration between yourself and your wife, Colleen Coover.
Correct.
Who did fantastic artwork. I absolutely love it. Is this the first project that you worked on together?
No, we've worked on quite a few together. Like even back in the 90s, like when we first started dating, like when you're a writer, if an artist comes within arm's reach of you, you grab them. I married this one, so she is my favorite artist in the world. The work she does on Bandette is just amazing. But yeah, we started, I was doing a book called, what was it called? Attitude Lad. She's sitting right off camera, by the way. So,
hi, Colleen.
So I was doing a book called Attitude Lad that was for both. We went back and forth between publisher called Slave Labor and then Caliber. And I had Colleen doing work in that. And then we did a book called Banana Sunday at Oni, a book called Gingerbread Girl at Top Shelf. I think those were the only major projects before Bandette, but we did a lot of like subsidiary things, a couple of things at Marvel together, which was a lot of fun. But yeah, she keeps pretty active with my scripts.
Excellent. Yeah, I mean, you guys, I gotta say, make quite the tag team because her artwork is perfectly suited to this story. I'll just let me see. I'll show one panel here for anyone who hasn't seen this. Yeah, this is kind of, I picked this panel. This kind of sums up like what I love about this book. It's for so many comics that I read and that I love. Like when I think about some of my favorite comics, like for example, right now I'm reading a lot of horror stuff. There's a lot of horror stuff going on, a lot of post-apocalyptic stuff. And then some of my all-time favorites, are, bleak, depressing affairs like V for Vendetta, but then something like Bandette, I absolutely love, because it's a complete opposite of that stuff. It's fun, it's funny, it's lighthearted, it's action-packed, it's French, indeed. I've not read many Tintin comics, but I think it's safe to say that there's an influence there.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, it's just like a really, it makes me feel good, it makes me happy. Now, for anyone who hasn't read it, I guess maybe I'll just say it's about Bandette is a career thief, right, and an excellent one at that. And most importantly, she's got Presto. She's got Presto and candy bars. And yeah, she's indeed a criminal, right? But one whose skills have made her an invaluable asset to the police, right? Police Inspector Belgique, correct?
Correct.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Who begrudgingly calls upon her services, when he's in a tight spot. Now, that's one thing I love actually was after the first issue, in every subsequent issue on the first page, you've got sort of a previously what happened, in the previous issue. Now, a lot with most books, it's just like a paragraph or two, but I love what you guys did here in that you have literally like panels,
Like little
kind of
vignettes.
hitting all the important points of the past issue. I thought that was incredibly well done. Very
That's all
helpful.
Colleen.
Yeah.
so, yeah, she's off camera smiling now, going, yeah, it's dang right, I'm special.
Yeah. But yeah, that's very helpful. Although maybe not so much for my case, because I pretty much binge read the whole thing in like
Nice.
a couple of sittings.
Right.
I couldn't stop reading it. Now that and I this was originally just published digitally, which is how I read it, but I believe there are now physical copies of that available.
Yeah, Dark Horse puts out physical copies. The
Yeah.
4th volume just came out just like maybe 3 weeks ago or so. Yeah, we always wanted stuff on the shelves, but I really love the digital medium too. It's nice to be able to like just finish something and put it up, immediately. I mean, that has its problems too. Like I can remember when we finished the very first episode of Bandette. I think it was up and online so that people could read it like literally a day after we had finished it.
Okay.
So we got this immediate feedback, which was, fantastic. But also part of that immediate feedback was, when's the next one? And it's like, we this one's still smoking and hot from the press, So it was like, we're just getting started, which is part of the reason we do those, what's happened so far is because Bandette is my favorite book that I work on, but it's not the fastest book that I work on. Like you pointed out, like we won Best Digital in 2013, and I think we're only on like 21 or 22, I'm looking off screen, 22 episodes so far. So that's 22 episodes in like 8-9 years. So yeah, we're not speeding on them, but we're really influenced by like French and Belgian comics for Bandette, and I think we're maybe influenced by French and Belgian speed too.
Yeah,
because they don't really come out very fast. I mean, like you mentioned Tintin. Tintin put out like 20 books in like 40 years or something like that.
Yeah.
So, but you can put a little more care into them that way and make something that, that you really care about. Not that some of the books that I do pretty fast aren't books I care about too.
Well, I mean, it definitely shows in this. I mean, everything, like I was saying about, the pacing, everything seems like every panel of this is like I wouldn't add anything or take anything away. It's really like a perfect story. Where does Bandette come from? Like the character Bandette, is she kind of is she I guess based on any particular characters, or is she a conglomerate of different things?
She's a conglomerate to a certain degree. Bandette actually started, like you mentioned, BD Belgique. He was the first character. Colleen had drawn. She likes to draw characters with big noses, and he has a big nose. So she had done a little sketchbook drawing of him, and then when we Chris Roberson, who's a comic book creator, decided to start Monkey Brain, which is our friends group that publishes through Comixology, and he wanted us to create a series, and Bandette is what we eventually created. But I asked Colleen, I was like, what would you like to draw? And she was like, well, this guy with the big nose is what I want to draw. So I was like, okay. So we kind of came up with his character, and like you say, it's very very French influenced. And in fact, the BD for BD Belgique, his name stems. BD is bande dessinée, which is French for comics, and then Belgique is a tip of the hat towards Belgium and Tintin and all that. So he's our character of like tribute to a certain degree. But I wanted him, but then I think that every good police detective has a foil, so I wanted a foil for him. And I mentioned earlier having read a lot as a kid, and I still read a lot, but I always liked, there were some fairly cheesy, but I devoured them books like the Hardy Boys and Nancy Drew, especially. I liked Nancy Drew. So I kind of wanted a Nancy Drew type character, but
I kind of got a sense of those as well. I as a kid, I read a few of those. So there's definitely I could see some of that in there. I mean, you've got this amazing cast of characters of, other thieves and assassins and like I was saying before, it's so so many of the comics I read are dark and violent, and this book has conflict. It has plenty of it, but it's not. It's not what you would call violent, or there's no malevolence in it whatsoever, right? It's really
it's
even though there's murder, there's murder and intrigue, but it's
it gets a little hard sometimes putting like the murder and the intrigue in there, but Bandette is relentlessly charming and happy.
Absolutely,
and that's who she is. So
yeah, of course. And she where I gotta ask you, where does Presto come from?
I don't know that it comes from any particular thing. I mean, Bandette sees herself as an artist and a performer, more than a thief to some degree. So she kind of loves that adulation to a certain degree. So like the Presto is the moment of look what I have done.
I like that. I gotta say, this I don't know what issue it was, but has probably one of my favorite lines ever, which is I believe it was the air is already thick with bullets. Do not overcrowd it with drama as well. That was a one last question about Bandette. Where can I get a can of knockout spray? That stuff is phenomenal.
I wish I could answer that, and if I could answer that, I'd be hoarding it all because it's good for daily life.
Yeah. Oh, look at this. Okay, pure amateur move right here. Let me run and grab my laptop charger, which luckily it's right. I did not have to go far. All right, within earshot. So bear with me as I plug this in. It wouldn't be. I mean, it could be worse. I could lose audio in front of 2,000 people, right?
Right.
Yeah. Anyhow, where was I? Okay, Bandette. Right. So, another book I wanted to get to that I loved was Colder, which started out as a 5-issue miniseries.
Correct.
And I mean, the concept alone had me hooked right away. This rather creepy fellow, Nimblejack, who essentially feeds on insanity. I mean, that alone was something I hadn't really ever seen before. And then there's the phenomenal artwork by Juan Ferreira. Guys, I can't let actually this would now be a good time to share this for anyone who has not read Colder. I mean, the artwork alone is just it's stunning. I mean, here's a great 3-panel example of this book is creepy for sure. This has everything I love about good horror. It's creepy and it's intriguing. And stuff like this is really up my alley. I'll show this other panel as well because I absolutely love it. Here we go. Check that out, guys. Yeah, that's Juan Ferreira. Anyhow, so how did this project come to be? How did you end up working with Juan?
I had worked with Juan previously. We did some work on a book called Falling Skies, which was based on a television show. And I feel like there might have been one other project we did together too. And I liked his art. His art was good, and so we decided to team up for a creator-owned thing. But man, when he started turning this in, because he had asked, he's like, on these previous projects, I felt kind of held back. He said, because he couldn't do his own coloring, he couldn't do his own techniques. He had to kind of stay within the box to a certain degree. And he's like, would you mind if I kind of cut loose? And I'm like, I want you to cut loose. I think that's, and then he started turning these pages in. And all these weird techniques. He was using colored pencils and computer colors and all sorts of weird stuff. His dad actually helped him on the colors a lot. His dad works on colors. Okay. And it was just crazy stuff, and it just fits so well. And it changed my outlook of the series. Like, I had all these plans, and then I started getting these pages, and I'm like, wait, let's go in other directions. Like, especially with Nimble Jack, who's the villain to a certain degree, or if you want to call him the main character, I think that's fair too. Nimble Jack was going to be kind of a throwaway character, and then he started drawing him so creepy and unsettling that I'm like, whoop, all right, I'm going to write him in the scripts a lot more. I'm going to work with him a lot more.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. Yeah, I absolutely loved it. So I read the first series of books, but you've done two additional miniseries as well, which I have not read yet. Absolutely looking forward to them. Now, are they sequels to the first story?
Yeah, they're continuation of the story. Yeah. The second one deals with a little more of a different villain. And then the third one is kind of back in the Nimble Jack territory, because I love him.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely one of my favorite villains I've come across in a while. He's creepy, and he's just unsettling. Yeah, that's really the perfect way to put it.
Well, that's the way I like horror. I don't like jump scare horror. I like that. I like horror that you kind of like, you watch or read or whatever, and you go, yeah, that kind of got to me. And then like 2 days later, you wake up in the middle of the night going, oh man, I can't stop thinking about this, and that's the way I like it. Like, I grew up on, horror that was more along the lines of like the jump scare stuff, like, Friday the 13th or Halloween and things like that. But then, like, around about the year 2000 or so, I started getting into the Japanese and Korean horror, which is far more unsettling, far more creepy for me. There's a director, Takashi Miike, that has done some incredibly weird, unsettling stuff. And he
did Audition, right?
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Audition. That's unsettling.
A relentless, like, sort of mood. And then,
yes. Yeah.
And then that end, and then you're just going to say that to yourself.
Oh my god! Now that that's been brought up, it's been years since I've watched that. I think I'm gonna have to watch that tomorrow.
Yeah, it is worth a watch.
Yeah, definitely. Actually, for me, yes, like the Japanese stuff, but I think I also grew up, watching, Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th. I think the first movie, not necessarily the first movie that scared me. The first movie that ever scared me was The Exorcist.
Really? Oh, yeah. That's a good one though.
And I think I probably saw that when I was like 10 or 11 years old, I want to say. And absolutely, I couldn't sleep. But I'd say one of the first movies that scared me, but also that I really saw the other, kind of the psychological horror that that it wasn't just about monsters or ghosts, was The Shining. I mean, that changed everything for me.
Yeah, it's a great mood.
Yeah, absolutely. Still one of my favorite movies to this day. and that, so there is that, and you have those elements, that psychological horror combined with the supernatural, but combined with gore. I think Colder combines all of those things, which I love. Um, and Bunny Mask as well. But before I get to Bunny Mask, I did want to ask you about your novel, Prepare to Die.
Okay.
Now, I've not had a chance to read it, but I can assure you it's at the top of my reading list. I gotta say, ever since I got back into the hobby of collecting and reading comics a little over a year ago, my novel reading has taken a serious hit.
You only have so much time.
Like it's non-existent. Definitely need to. I've got so many books here that I need to read, and it's like, well, there's all these comics too. I can't just. Right. Oh my god, yeah, it's never ending. But this is definitely a book that could help me ease back into that, as it is about a superhero. Now, given your background as a comic book writer, is there a particular reason you wanted to write this as a novel as opposed to, say, a graphic novel?
I think you can go into a character a little more in a novel, and you can control everything, which at times I love working with a collaborator in comics, or a group of collaborators, as it usually is. But sometimes it's nice just to sit down and purely tell your own story, and that's kind of what I wanted to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, you can definitely, it's a solitary, I guess, journey, and it's one that, yeah, like you said, you can kind of go into depth a bit more, I suppose.
Yeah, because if you're doing comics and you do like a long sequence of internal thoughts, it gets a little samey in the panels, unless you're doing like other views, which you can do.
Right. Yeah. No. Yeah, that makes sense. Absolutely. Now, I am, like I was saying, I'm a huge fan of horror, and there's a lot of great horror comics out right now. But one that particularly stood out was Bunny Mask. The first issue, it was creepy, disturbing, intriguing. It had me hooked immediately. It presented a mystery that, as soon as I finished reading that first issue, I was like, I don't know where this is going, but I've got to find out. And yeah, like I had just said, it's got a bit of everything that I look for in a good horror story. It's got a mix of that. There is gore in there, but it's a mix of the supernatural and psychological horror, but also intriguing characters, especially the very mysterious character of Bunny Mask. Now, for anyone who hasn't read it, and issue 2 just came out, could you, and for myself, actually, I'd love to hear in your own words a synopsis of Bunny Mask.
I am so terrible at synopsis. I mean, that's kind of why I write them.
Yeah.
So I kind of try to avoid doing synopsis, because I think everybody, especially with horror, should find what their own story is in it. That's part of why I like mystery as part of horror. Like, who is Bunny Mask? I don't know that I've even answered that question for myself, like, who is Bunny Mask? So a synopsis is hard for me. It's just Tyler Severin, the main character, trying to get through, and he's through terrible chance, uncovered a creature known as Bunny Mask, and she's strange and very dangerous, but also kind of on his side. I kind of look at it like if you remember the girl from The Ring, that crawls out of the TV or whatever. I kind of look at Bunny Mask as like her if she was trying to do good, but her perception of what's good in the world and doing nice she's the other. And then that's one thing that I think is very important in horror, is to have some aspect that we don't understand, because if you understand things, then it lessens them. So yeah, I try to avoid synopsis or definition of Bunny Mask as a character too much, because I think that should be up to the reader.
Yeah, I think. Well, first of all, it's an excellent way to dodge this question, and
Thank you so much.
but I also completely agree with you. If you were to strip this of its mystery, then it kind of defeats the purpose, right? It's That's one of the things I love about this. Like I said, it hooked me immediately because, first of all, this Bunny Mask is. When I first saw the cover, I was like, okay, it's a girl in a bunny mask. How interesting could this be? And boy, was I wrong. Like this wasn't a character really like I've seen before. And the dialogue. So the dialogue right off the bat, you kind of hit us with this. It reminded me a lot of Colder. There's actually a lot of. Some of the dialogue and then some of the themes you explore are kind of do remind me of Colder a bit in that there's very much this I guess you would call it, well, in Colder you have these two worlds, right? You have the normal world, the sane world, and then you have the realm of Nimblejack, of the insane, right? Of chaos and insanity.
The hungry world.
Yeah. And you can actually, physically see that difference. Whereas in Bunny Mask, it's not as clear what is happening. Is Tyler hallucinating right now? Is he dreaming? There's a certain sequence, particularly in issue 2, where all of a sudden he's one place and then the next he's somewhere completely different. And it's really disorienting. But I really like that. And I don't expect an explanation for that. I just thought, again, like it's unsettling, that sort of those shifts into, you don't really know exactly what it is that's happening, but that's and then all of a sudden, oh, there's another painting, right? Like that. That's for me. I love that kind of stuff. So
thanks. Yeah,
that's what's going to keep me reading Bunny Mask for sure.
Yeah, those are the themes I like to explore, like the very personal horror. Like Colder was about sanity, and to a certain degree, Bunny Mask is. The second arc of Colder, which you said you haven't read yet, deals a lot with fingers, because I consider fingers very personal, and have ever since. When I was in shop class in high school, I watched a guy accidentally bandsaw off one of his fingers. And just like the little finger flipping up through the air has always been kind of a horror moment for me, because it was like, it's like reality adjacent, I guess, where it's like, okay, that makes sense, that's a finger and I understand that, but why isn't it attached? And like,
I know. Okay, that is very much my reality every day. I work in a wood shop full time, so I use a table saw every day, and I have been for years, and luckily, knock on wood, still got all mine. But yeah, that is reality, just because one minute it's there and then the next it's somewhere else it shouldn't be. That is,
he had done that classic thing of like moving like having a guide finger out on a block of wood and then just moving it through the saw, and it's like, that's a mistake, son.
It is. Keys, really just keep your wits about you, and that machine isn't doing anything it's not supposed to be doing normally, right? 99% of the time, it's as long as you're respecting it and you know what you're doing. But accidents happen, and sometimes you can put those accidents into comic books, and they're entertaining.
And that's kind of why, like, Bunny Mask starts out with a young girl getting her teeth chipped out, because that's something that we can all kind of experience on a certain level. I mean, not like we all got our teeth chipped out, but We don't like if your horror is like, oh, on the first page they suck their soul out and put it into a different dimension. Like very few people have experienced that. So,
Yeah.
but this we understand.
Thankfully, I've never experienced
Yeah.
this. I'd rather not have my teeth chiseled out, but that's
Yeah. But you
again,
kind of understand it on a base level. You can kind of go, oh,
yeah,
I seriously don't want that to happen.
yeah, oh yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, I've certainly, like most people, had dreams of all my teeth falling out, and there are a few things more unsettling, you
Yeah.
know? Yeah, yeah. So thank you again, Paul, for another unsettling image.
better thing you can dream
Really,
about. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. So yeah, Bunny Mask. Yeah, it is a difficult book to talk about without kind of giving anything away, or it's something that really has to be experienced. And I would highly recommend everyone do so. This absolutely has a lot of potential. Now, is there a set number of issues for this yet, or?
The first arc is 4, and then Andrea and I are talking about more, which is almost assuredly going to happen. It's schedule wise.
Mm-hmm.
Schedules are they're screwed up in comics right now because everybody had projects going, and then everybody had to stop everything because of the pandemic, basically.
Yeah.
And then starting back up again has been weird because you found work during it, and it's like I was doing this, but now I got to go back to this. So it's just a matter of scheduling. But we think it's going to work out. We hope so.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, and this is from Aftershock Comics, which I just wanted to mention because I think they've been publishing some phenomenal books lately. So,
absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, how's it been working with them? Because they seem like they're really good company of people there.
They're great.
Yeah.
Mike, the head editor, Mike Martz, is unsettlingly good. I'm used to editors that will, like, I'll send something in, and then like 4 days later or something, I'll get like a, hey, just letting you know I got that. And maybe I don't even get that. And then like a week after that, I get notes back and blah, blah, blah. So as a writer, it's like you sort of send something in to your editors and then you relax for a while. But Mike is so fast, you don't get time to relax. It's like, like first time I sent a script in, like within an hour, he had detailed script notes back. And I'm like, I was taking the rest of the day off, Mike. I just want to kick back and play video games for a while, but now you got me at work again. Yeah, he's great to work with. And Christina Harrington is another editor there I work with. I work with them as a pair. Yeah, they're actually fantastic to work with, and very perceptive too. I mean, it's great what I'm about to say in an editor, but it's also annoying sometimes because as a writer, you kind of know, like, oh, this page was weak, or this little characterization was weak, or something was weak, but I'm not quite sure how to fix it. But they'll always find that Mike and Christina are always there going, hey, yeah, page 16, that's weak, do something. And it's like, okay.
They're doing their job, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it makes it, I mean, the book is always better in the end, which is, that's what you want to do. And it was fun. It's fun working with Andrea because he's a character, and because working with him, I get to see how a reader's perception of it is to a certain degree, because literally every artist I've ever worked with, I'll send them a script and they'll read the script and then start to come up with what they think, except for him. If I send him a 24-page script, he will read the first page and then draw the first page. He doesn't like to read ahead. So like there were all sorts of moments and that, like, he'll draw a page and then he'll be like writing me personally and going, I really like this character. Is she going to be okay? What happens on the next page? And it's like, you have the full script. Yeah, but I don't want to read it yet because, spoilers. And it's like,
phenomenal.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's so I get to see how a reader sees it, like literally page by page when Andrea is working.
He's incredible. He is absolutely one of my favorite artists working right now. Mm-hmm. He's got done a number of projects over the past year that have blown me away. How did you get hooked up with him? Was it through Aftershock or?
It was through Aftershock,
Yeah.
yeah. To a certain degree, funnily enough, like I was cleaning up my email the other day, and I found I have a terrible memory, so I forget everything. But I found out when I was looking through my emails that, like in 2016, he and I had talked back and forth and decided to work on something together, but then it just never happened. So it was kind of fun to run across that, and now we are working together.
Awesome. Yeah. I actually, so going back to Bandette, you said that you had 22 episodes now. Does that mean you are still working on Bandette?
Yep,
There's
absolutely.
more Bandette to come.
Yeah, I think Colleen is finishing up the Bandette, the next episode. I think she just finished it, basically. I'm looking off. Yep, she just nodded.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there should be another one going up. It usually, we can't put them up as fast as we used to, like, because Comixology's system takes a little longer to go through now, where it used to be like you could send it in and it would be up. But now it takes about a month or so to go through the process where they make sure that everything is okay. So it won't be up like real soon, but it's finished and will be up, shortly.
Excellent. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. Again, that's it's an absolute joy to read Bandette. That's it. Like I said, so different from most of the things I read, and I'm really glad I discovered it, because it's yeah, I can't recommend it enough, guys. Anyone watching this, go read Bandette immediately. You will love
I agree.
it. And yeah, so I think we're gonna wrap things up here. Is there any other things you have in the works you wanted to talk about?
Let's see. Well, Colleen and I are co-writing a book now, a series of graphic novels called Rassel Castle, which will come out from Vault real soon. I think mid-September we start releasing those. We've been working on them for a long time, so we're really excited by that. I think that's the only thing that's announced so far. I'm working on 2 more horror books, so I'm coming back to horror hard because I really enjoyed working on Colder.
Yeah.
But then just didn't work for a while to do more horror. I was busy with other stuff, but now like it just creeps into your brain and it's like, I want to write more horror. So yeah, there's Bunny Mask and then 2 more that haven't been announced yet.
And well, the audience is clearly there because people are snapping up horror books left and right. People are putting them out there, and I mean, I'm reading them. I'm reading lots of them.
I think it's the best time period ever for horror books. It's just amazing. Yeah. There's some really great stuff coming out.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'd say, definitely say best since probably since the 70s, when we had like Tomb of Dracula, Werewolf by Night. This is this horror renaissance that's happening right now. Is right. Yeah, it's absolutely a great time to be reading, to be a fan of horror comics. Absolutely. Yeah, so definitely. And you, I gotta say, Colder and Bunny Mask, you definitely have a mind for it.
Thank you.
And kind of creeps me out a little bit.
That's the fun of like working on horror books, is like we talked about that first page where I wrote, the young girl, B. Foster, getting her teeth chipped out. And it's like, I write it and I'm like, oh, that's kind of creepy. And then Andrea turns the page in and I'm looking at it going, you monster. What have you done? Andrea, you can't. He's like, you wrote this. And I'm like, yeah, I wrote it. Like, geez, look at it.
It's hard to believe that the same person that wrote that also wrote Bandette, which I mean, really speaks to your skill as a writer. So yeah, I love it. I love all this work. And I guess one last thing I'd like to say before we go is I'm completely stealing the line "slapping like pancakes," and I intend to use that.
Please do.
I don't know how it's going to go over, but we'll see.
Worth a try.
Yeah, it's always worth a shot. Yeah. And my wife probably won't know the reference, so I think it's let's
So you
see.
get a little mystery to it too. So
Yeah,
that's
right.
good.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think we'll wrap this up. Paul, thank you so much
Been
for
fun.
this. This has been really really wonderful conversation. I'm glad to have learned more about Bandette, a little bit more about Bunny Mask. Yeah, it's okay. You keep your secrets.
Yeah, I have to, man.
You have to, absolutely. Again, agreed. It's gonna keep me coming back to read it. I absolutely love this book. Guys, anyone watching who's tuned in live, thank you so much. And again, check out Colder and Bandette and Bunny Mask, and you've written lots of other comic books. I can't list them all here.
All
But
right.
the Witcher ones, I'm going to check out the Witcher ones too. I have not read those, but I do enjoy Witcher. So that's, again, on my never-ending reading list.
Sweet.
Does not seem to get any smaller, only larger.
The first arc of Witcher is basically a horror book, so you'll probably like it.
Nice. Okay. Yeah. Excellent. Awesome. All right, great. Thank you so much, Paul.
Thank you.
And thank you guys for tuning in. And I will see you all later.